What is up everyone, and welcome to some more F1 23 My Team Career Mode. And we're here for round number 10 of Season 5 of our Jaguar Racing career, and we're going to be at the Austrian Grand Prix. It is a sprint weekend and we are riding a bit of a high at the moment. Our last three races have been first, second and first, which is really nice to see. Obviously we got a win last time out in Canada, and yeah, I've been enjoying racing and driving a lot more. We finally find out how Liam Lawson managed to get a podium in Canada, because apparently Williams took a massive step forward to basically mixing it with the big boys. So that probably explains how Liam Lawson was able to finish second and be putting pressure on me for the win towards the end of the race last time out. But we managed to snap it up, and I fully expect that Lawson and maybe Fittipaldi as well will be able to mount further challenges for points finishes and podiums throughout the rest of the season as well. You know, Lawson's got incredible pedigree. Meanwhile, looking at the standings, you can see I've closed the gap to Norris to just 10 points, and we've closed the gap to Mercedes to just 38 in the Constructors' Championship as well. So I'm really hoping that in Austria, with two races, we've got the Sprint and the Grand Prix, of course. I'm hoping that between those two, we should be able to hopefully be able to get a maybe close the gap, maybe even overtake Norris in the Drivers' Championship. I think we may have to wait on the Constructors' Championship unless Jack Doohan can find a bit more form. My teammate this season, Jack Doohan, the Australian, you know, he's in his kind of second season of Formula 1, I guess, because last season he got the call up halfway through to McLaren. We saw how well he was doing in the McLaren basically immediately. I mean, I say basically immediately. It was immediately. He won his first race in that McLaren, but maybe it was the machinery making him look good, as some people in the comments have suggested, because for us so far, he's yet to even finish on the podium. I think he had 4 or 5 podiums for McLaren in about 11 races. So yeah, it was a bit of a disappointing start to the season for Jack Doohan this time around. But once we get past Britain, we will only be going to races that Jack Doohan has raced at before. So I'm hoping that that little bit of experience there now will be able to carry him forward a little bit. But we have a lot to do here in Austria before we can even think about the races to come. It is a sprint weekend, so we've got the sprint and we've got the race. And before all of that, there is practice, which, as is often the case, didn't go amazingly well pace-wise for me. I mean, I was actually only 5/10 of the fastest lap, but that was on a set of soft compound tyres when the fastest lap was set on mediums. But we can't dwell on it too much. We just have to hope that we can recover as we get into qualifying now, which I'm hoping will go a little bit better for us than practice went. We're P13 in practice. I want at least a Q3 appearance. I mean, we know how chaotic Austria can be, right? So I'm thinking that that we should feasibly be able to finish quite strongly in the points, even if we don't get the best qualifying. But you know, I want to qualify well here as well to give myself the best opportunity. Our first flying lap on a set of softs, it was only a 103.3, which honestly a lot worse than I was expecting. I was thinking we'd be comfortably into the 102s almost immediately around here, but it wasn't to be. And even on my second flying lap, which wasn't totally essential because we were in P14, so we would have made it through regardless, but I did a second flying lap on another fresh set of soft compound tyres. It was still only good enough for a 103.1. So we get through in P13, but my pace just not quite where I was expecting it would be at this stage. And to make matters worse, it looks like the Mercedes are pretty fast around here, as Alex Albon does a 102.2, which is a ridiculously fast time. Jack Doohan does make it through to Q2 this time, so making up for his bit of a blunder in Canada. Meanwhile, a little bit of a shock, we see Leclerc exiting in Q1, along with Hulkenberg, Joe, Tsunoda, Stroll and De Vries. So with the exception of Leclerc, I would say no real surprise Q1 exits there. But you would think that that Leclerc really should have done a little bit better than that, especially somebody who has been there or thereabouts as a championship contender in the past, seeming like he doesn't really have what it takes to make that happen this season. But we make our way into Q2 without Charles Leclerc now, and we're going to see if we can finally do a 102 time. We do a 103.0 on a used set of soft compound tyres, and that gave me the optimism I needed to know that a 102 was definitely possible here. And it actually was necessary as well, because as you can see, I've just been pushed down into the drop zone now. So I'm going to need to get a bit of improvement on my lap here. A few more cars yet to cross the line, including Perez pushing me down to P12. So this is to knock Verstappen out of qualifying. We do a 102.6 or 0.7, I think that was. And it was good enough for P6. So, yeah, I was pretty happy with that. And, yeah, it means Max Verstappen won't take any further part in qualifying. Both of the Williams, perhaps disappointingly, knocked out there as well. And my teammate, Jack Doohan, as well, which, again, another exit before Q3 for Jack Doohan. He joins Ocon in the Alpine and Sargent in the Haas. Meanwhile, Gasly has done a pretty good job to make it through in the Alpine. Hauger out-qualifying his teammate again. You know, Dennis Hauger actually seems like he's got the measure of Max Verstappen a little bit this season, which is remarkable. He's come on leaps and bounds as he enters his 4th year in Formula 1 now. You know, he looked a bit far off Max Verstappen in the previous season when he was still getting to grips with the Aston Martin, as they both were, actually, to be fair to them. But now it seems like all of a sudden he's doing a lot better, Dennis Hauger. So we'll see how he can go here in Q3 as we do a 102.8 on a set of fresh soft compound tyres, because there was a threat of rain towards the end of qualifying, so I didn't make the same mistake I made before, and in the end that was only good enough for P5. So yeah, a bit of an anticlimactic ending to qualifying there, with no real last lap shootout or anything like that. But you can see here the top 3 of Norris, Hauger and Albon. So Hauger doing very well, as I was expecting. And yeah, we are looking pretty good to go for the qualifying. You know, P5, I think we have a very good chance of contending for some points in the sprint, and then hopefully from there we can contend for a podium in the race as well. We need to beat those Mercedes, and so we will see what we can do as we get into the sprint race for the Austrian Grand Prix.
Welcome to today's sprint. This is shaping up to be another fantastic weekend. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. Lando Norris will lead us away from pole position, and Dennis Hauger completes the front row. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Albon, Magnussen, Robinson, Perez, Russell, Gasly, Sainz, Oscar Piastri, Verstappen, Liam Lawson, Fittipaldi, Doohan, Ocon, Sargent, Leclerc, Hulkenberg, Joe, Tsunoda, Stroll, and Nick de Vries rounds off the grid. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We will soon find out.
Okay, we've got that relief of having points on the board finally, so let's keep...
Yeah, we don't care about that. And we just want to go racing, so that's what I'm going to do. I am going to get ready for getting to hopefully jump a few of these cars off the line. That is always the goal. You know how good I am on the starts compared to the AI, even though we are on 99 difficulty. Just for those of you who are interested, we have kind of stayed put with the difficulty for the moment. It's been treating me well, as is. So yeah, I thought we would keep it going. Obviously, I am the kind of person who wants to try and make every race as competitive as it can possibly be. I think most YouTubers will probably agree with me on that. That if you can keep a semblance of competitiveness, that's probably for the best. But we will see what we can do here now as the lights come on. And the lights go out. And we've had a pretty good getaway compared to some drivers here. Magnussen kind of got caught up behind Norris and Hauger there, who had poor getaways, but Albon has made his way through. We're going to try and challenge him on the outside now, but we can't quite make it work. So we're going to have to settle in for P2 for the time being, but I'm hoping that we should be able to hopefully, you know, stay with him and make a bit of a challenge for the victory here in the sprint. But we are going to have to deal with some pressure from his teammate, the current reigning world champion, 2-time world champion, in fact. No, that's incorrect. He's only won it once. But yeah, the reigning world champion, Lando Norris, who is behind me at the moment. He's going to go for his second world championship this season. and I'm pretty confident that unless we can make a big effort to stop him now, or maybe even, I say us necessarily, but it could also be his teammate. I'm pretty confident that Lando Norris will win this unless we can start outperforming him on a very regular basis. We're starting to run away with this championship. We've managed to put a bit of a dent in his lead, but he still very much has control of the championship for the time being, and the only person other than me who looks like they might be able to wrench it from him is his teammate, as Lando Norris now does overtake me, but we're going to see if we can get him right back here as we come on the run down the hill and towards turn 4, I believe this one is. I'm never really sure what counts as a corner and what doesn't here in Austria, because some people tell you this track has 9, some people tell you this track has 11 corners. I don't really know. All I know is that out of the exit of that corner I had a big snap of oversteer, and that has allowed Norris to go through. We definitely had a chance to be fighting with him, but we may have just missed that chance to keep him behind as we now exit turn number 7/9/ whatever that is. Now we are looking at me once again on lap 7 as we are coming under pressure from Magnussen and Hauger. Magnussen getting past into lap 7 there, and now we've got our former teammate Dennis Hauger. Both of these drivers, of course, previous teammates of mine. My Viking bias showing perhaps a little bit here, as actually Magnussen is coming under pressure from Hauger now as well. They're going to go too wide into the corner. Hauger looking to make the double overtake. I don't know if he's going to pull it off there, but yeah, you can see eventually he does get ahead of Magnussen as we lose out 2 positions there, and it might be a third here on lap 7 as George Russell is making his way through as well, but we're going to try and fight him back into the final corner. And well, we've exceeded track limits there for the second time this race. You may not have caught it in the previous clip where I was fighting with Magnussen and Hauger, but I actually had to go off track there as well. So that's my second warning here in the sprint race, and we're going to have to be very careful, otherwise we might pull a bit of an Esteban Ocon and get some penalties for track limits. Oscar Piastri now putting us under pressure here as we make our way onto lap 8, and I am desperate to just try and keep as many positions as I can here, because I wasn't really expecting this, that I would be coming under such increased pressure from the drivers behind, but that does seem to be what's going on here at the moment, as Oscar Piastri has now overtaken me into the final couple of corners, and we're going to see with the DRS if we can fight him back a little bit. We're quite close, only a couple tenths behind him, so with some DRS we're burning quite a bit of battery here as well. Can we go around the outside of Oscar Piastri into turn 1? It seems like we can, and we've made our way back into P5. This is Alex Albon comfortably leading the race, and when I say comfortably, I mean not comfortably at all, because he has now just had a spin, and that's going to allow his teammate Lando Norris to go on and take the victory here in the sprint, unless something disastrous happens for the Mercedes team going forward from here. He also loses the position to Hauger and Magnussen there, so that is Albon falling all the way down into P4, and unfortunately we couldn't quite capitalise on that. We were just a little bit too far back to really make a move on Albon, but Piastri is going to try and go for a move on me, and in doing so he actually shoves me off the track and gives me a time penalty. That's a grievance if ever I've had one. How on earth did I get a time penalty for being pushed off the track by an attacking car? Makes absolutely no sense. But in any case, we've now got a 3-second penalty to contend with here, as it looks like Esteban Ocon in the Alpine is going to be out of the race here. He's going to be a mechanical failure, the only mechanical failure so far in this race. With only 1 lap to go after this one, you'd have to say it's probably likely to be the only retirement, unless something very dramatic happens on the final lap. But yeah, we are going to continue going on as normal. No safety cars, no VSCs, no red flags, nothing for that. And George Russell now making a move on me up the inside, and now we're going to have the DRS to try and fight Russell back here. We've got a little bit of battery, but not loads to fight him with. Should be enough that we can burn it down most of this straight, although I do jump off it a little bit. We're going to try and go up the inside, but he defends the inside, so we switch to the outside. We go off the track, we hit him, everything's gone absolutely tits up, and in doing so as well, we actually, before, were building a little bit of a gap to Piastri and Perez. That's now completely gone as we go wide into the next corner as well. You know, we've gone from being 3 seconds ahead of Perez to now we are about 1.5 seconds ahead of Perez. So my chance of scoring points here has evaporated, just like that. And yeah, we're going to be very comfortably out of the points here. I don't know where we're going to be, but it's been a very difficult race for us as we come around the final corner, and we're going to cross the line to take
Okay, pick up rubber and bring
P10. Oof, horrible. I was not sure. I didn't want to say anything because I didn't know how many positions I would have gained or lost with the penalty. I say gained, obviously lost, but unfortunately, yeah, we lose 5 positions off of that.
So let's have a look then at the drivers' standings. It's a good result for Lando Norris, who moves further ahead at the top of the table. The grid is set then, so that just leaves the race itself. Join us tomorrow, where we'll be live with all the action. And until then, goodbye. Welcome to the beautiful Styrian Mountains for another chapter in the story of this famous race. It's time for the Austrian Grand Prix. 700 metres above sea level, 10 corners and one of the shortest laps of the season. 2.6 miles with some good overtaking opportunities, but you've got to get the braking right into turn 1 and turn 3. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Lando Norris put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he will start from pole position with Kevin Magnussen alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Hauger, Albon, Russell, Oscar Piastri, Perez, Sainz, Leclerc, Robinson, Liam Lawson, Verstappen, Fittipaldi, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Doohan, Sargent, Tsunoda, De Vries, Stroll, Joe, and Esteban Ocon lines up at the back of the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track. With me today, of course, is Anthony Davidson. Now, can I get your take on Max Verstappen? And Anthony Davidson joins me in the commentary box for this once again. And they've gone beyond their allocation of changes allowed. It means they're going to be taking a grid drop, and it could be a tough racing stall.
It's unfortunate, but it happens to everyone at some point. You just have to accept your fate, knuckle down, and get on with the business of making up that deficit during the Grand Prix. So they'll be pushing hard today. One to watch for sure.
Well, we narrowly missed out on points due to that ridiculous penalty, as Devin Butler would say. And yeah, we are going to have to now fight from P10 on the grid to try and go for a podium here in the race. That was the target beforehand. The target hasn't changed. I just have to try and contend. Make sure I can make up a lot of positions at the start and see what we can do. But actually, to be fair, I feel like the key with Austria, I've always found, is patience. If you just exercise patience, don't get dragged into any incidents, don't battle anyone too hard, the race will come to you. Because the AI cannot help itself. It gets caught up in so much drama, so many crashes. There will be a few people having DNFs due to damage here, I imagine. Lots of people boxing to change their front wing. So all we have to do is just wait and the race will unfold, and we should hopefully, with some safety cars, find our way onto the podium. So we will see now whether that rings true or not as the lights come on and the lights go out, and we've had a good getaway compared to the two Ferraris here, and we're going to thread the needle all the way up into P8 here. We're going to see if we can put some pressure on our rival George Russell around the outside. He's got Piastri on the inside as well, so I think we might be able to go for a move on the McLaren driver at least, if not on the two Red Bulls. Meanwhile, the four cars out in front have had a pretty good getaway there. The two Mercedes, Hauger and Magnussen, all of them had a good getaway. Meanwhile, I have to stop quite early to avoid going into the back of Piastri, and Carlos Sainz sends a move up the inside of me, tries to get up the inside of Piastri as well, but he makes his way back into P8, and we have fallen down one position. So only one position gained through the first few corners. But like I said, patience, wait for the race to come to me, and I am sure that we will be spraying champagne in 36 laps time. So all we can do is just, you know, knuckle down, make sure that we don't make any stupid mistakes, don't get any penalties like we did last time, which you know, is easier said than done. But I am not that bad for getting penalties usually. I might exceed track limits a couple times here, but I can't imagine it's going to be horrendous. We go for a bit of a cheeky switchback here on Charles Leclerc, and well, we battled him quite hard, and that's actually already put me out of DRS range of his teammate Carlos Sainz there. So we may have to be careful here if we want to try and fight with the cars in front. We're going to be losing out if we're not cautious. This is Yuki Tsunoda in the Alfa Romeo. He's had a bit of contact there with Ocon by the looks of things. A few front wings flying about all over the place, and yeah, Tsunoda now going into the back of Ocon as well. So they've kind of hit each other there as yeah, his front wing end plate comes off. But he was retiring from the Grand Prix due to mechanical failure before that. And that is going to be Tsunoda well and truly out of the race. and we'll see what impact this has. It has a virtual safety car. That makes sense because he is parked up in a pretty easy to deal with position on the track, but I wouldn't be surprised maybe if it gets upgraded to a safety car. A few people with damage, so maybe there'll be some contact behind. Yeah, I think that's Ocon has come into the pits now, and well, he's having a bit of a weekend to forget as the VSC ends, and we're now going green once again. And we're going to see if we can catch up to Carlos Sainz here a little bit. And actually, we catch up with him a bit too much, as I have to bail out with that one, because we were about to go into the back of him if I wasn't careful. You know, when I saw that he was 8/10 up the road, I just kind of assumed I can brake wherever I want. But not the case. Not the case as it transpires. And yeah, very narrowly avoiding an accident, which once again puts me firmly out of DRS range of these cars in front, which is immensely frustrating, especially as I'm now coming under more pressure from Sainz's teammate Charles Leclerc, one of the only driver pairings on the grid along with Ocon and Gasly, which has stayed constant throughout all 5 seasons that I've driven in Formula 1. And well, it seems that Ocon and Gasly might end up being the longest standing one, because Sainz of course has announced his retirement from Formula 1 as we managed to hold off Leclerc there through the final few corners. You know, he's not giving up here, but Verstappen is looking like he might be making a move on Leclerc here, and we might be 3 wide going into this corner. But fortunately I was just ahead as I exceed track limits there, going wide to avoid any contact. Seems like there may have been some contact between the two of them though, because the gap has suddenly got a lot larger, and there is of course another virtual safety car as well. But I'm in a bit of a cul-de-sac. That's not the correct term. What I meant to say was I'm in a bit of a no man's land. I feel like I use that term too often, so I tried using a different one, and it proved to be a grave mistake on this occasion, as I just say something completely incorrect. Now we get on to the end of lap 6, and you can see I'm overtaking not 1, not 2, but it seems like it might be 3 cars here as we go up the inside of Sainz. And you might be wondering how I've gone from 9th to 6th through that sequence, and that is because Albon got damage from hitting Perez, who was pitting because he had damage. So Albon retired from the race, and then we just overtook Carlos Sainz. So we made up positions on Perez, Albon, and Sainz there. And yeah, that was a pretty good sequence of corners for me. And now we're going to see if we can go one better. We had a bit of a look to the inside of Piastri, but not really close enough to make the move on this occasion. And this has been the story for a few laps at this point, actually. I've just kind of been stuck behind Oscar Piastri, trying to sort of poke and prod and find a way through. And well, a little bit like Piastri had in Saudi Arabia on Lewis Hamilton, I'm now having a similar thing happening with me, where I just can't seem to find my way through on Oscar Piastri. You know, even with the DRS, even burning a bit of battery to try and get ahead of him, we can't make it happen. But eventually, we sneak a move up the inside at the very last second. Oscar Piastri didn't see it coming. He tried to cover it off right at the end, but he was just a bit too late. And that is going to be me up into P5. And now we're looking pretty good here. However, if you look at the mini-map, you will see that Lando Norris is quite dramatically far out in front of Dennis Hauger in P2. So yeah, this could end up being a bit of an easy ride for Lando Norris if there are no safety cars here. Lap 15 rolls around, and we are going to be putting on the hard compound tyres to the end of the race, hoping maybe I can go for a little bit of an undercut on some of the cars in front. But honestly, even Magnussen was so far up the road, I think it's going to be quite unlikely that an undercut is really going to be particularly feasible here. We will see, and you never know. That's the beauty of this sport, is that you literally never can tell whether a strategy you're going for is going to work out or not. But one thing I do know is that Perez and Leclerc have already pitted in this race, and they both just come out ahead of me here. Leclerc eventually pits again, but Perez on those hard compound tyres, he is not going to pit again. So we're going to have to do that the hard way, try and get ahead of Perez on track. 2 seconds up the road at the moment. We'll keep an eye on the gap as these laps unfold. I'm sure that his tyres will fall away from him, given that he boxed on lap 6. So he'll be doing 30 laps on those hard compound tyres. Not dissimilar to what I did in Canada, of course. But that one worked out for me on that occasion. Will this one work out for Perez? I don't know. The gap stayed pretty stable at the moment as a few more cars pitted. I'm back up into P5. So actually we have undercut somebody. I think it's Kevin Magnussen we've managed to undercut. So yeah, I'm happy with that. But Dennis Hauger stayed out in front. Russell stayed out in front. And Norris, of course, stayed in P1. We are currently resisting a bit of pressure from Carlos Sainz, but we managed to hold on to that position as well. And, well, as if it wasn't already a weekend to forget for him, Esteban Ocon is retiring from this race as well with another mechanical failure. Esteban Ocon, literally, I don't think, could have a worse weekend around here. And that's saying something, given that he once broke his own record for the most time penalties gained in a single race at this circuit. Although, of course, canonically, that didn't happen because we had an alternative 2023 season in this series. So, yeah, Esteban Ocon having one of his worst weekends in Formula 1. 2 mechanical failures in the same weekend. It's hard to get worse than that. Lap 27, we eventually do catch Perez, but we still have Carlos Sainz very much for company behind us, so we might be going 3 wide here into turn 2/3. But around the outside of Perez we go. I think Sainz is going to make the move around the outside as well, potentially. And Sergio Perez's tyres, you would have to say, definitely starting to fall away from him after 20 laps or so on those tyres. Now, that was a little bit of a cause for concern for me, but not a massive one on account of the fact that, obviously that's about the amount of time we're going to be doing on these tyres. However, as we make our way onto lap 31, Perez has actually managed to stay with us and stay ahead of Sainz as well. He goes for a bit of a look up the inside of me there, but he can't make the move on this occasion. But, I might have to resist some pressure for the next 5 laps or so. We will see. Meanwhile, Hauger is doing a pretty good job of holding off George Russell. I think Russell's medium tyres starting to fall away from him a little bit. Norris is about to get one of the biggest margins of victory we've seen all season, I would imagine. And this lap, Carlos Sainz is going to be the one piling the pressure on me. He looks even closer than Perez looked last time. We're going to see if we can send it back around the outside and kind of pinch him to the inside, not give him the room to get a good exit from the corner. It's fair game. You go up the inside, you have to pay the price for that. And we get the DRS for good measure as well, so we're able to quite comfortably keep Carlos Sainz behind in the end there. And then we didn't really come under much pressure after that. We just kind of kept it consistent to lap 36. However, once again, it's looking like Carlos Sainz is rather close to us, so we may have to be careful here if we don't want to lose out on P4 here at the last hurdle. Carlos Sainz making his way up into P4. He's definitely made that overtake work. I'm almost certain I went off the track there, and I have had 2 warnings, so I was very lucky not to get a penalty for that. But, yeah, we just get away with what we can do here. Carlos Sainz now, we're going to try and get back at him with the DRS. Dummy to the inside, pull to the outside, and try and sweep around the outside of the Ferrari through this corner. It's imperative we get a good exit here, otherwise we are going to lose out. And actually, I managed to get the power down nice and early there without oversteer. Lando Norris has already won the race. I think Hauger and Russell have already crossed the line at this point as well. So that's going to be your podium. And we now just have to hold off Carlos Sainz for a couple more corners to come home in P4. But he's not going to make it easy for us. Is he going to have a look up the inside here? No, actually, he doesn't. Which is surprising because the AI has been dive bombing me there all day. But we don't get the best exit out of the final corner. And you can see the gap is closing and closing, but not quite quickly enough for Carlos Sainz. And we do hold on to P4. There's about 0.05 of a second in it between the two of us there at the very end. But we've held on to P4. Jack Doohan gets driver of the day for bringing it back to 8th. And it was a pretty good race for us given the circumstances.
That's it then for another spectacular Grand Prix here in Austria, and a truly magnificent drive to hang on and take the win. Tell me, Ant, how do you think they were able to deliver such an incredible result today?
Well, they certainly stood out as a drive with tons of confidence on the track. I think their ability to keep their cool, even during some of the more hectic parts of the race, meant they were able to capitalise on the mistakes of other drivers, giving them the opportunity to make their way to the top spot with ease.
Mercedes are on top form once again after an excellent race weekend. It's great to see them up on that podium once again.
Yeah, as I said before, your podium here, Norris, Hauger and Russell, and I'm sure all of those will be pretty happy to be up on the podium, especially Dennis Hauger, who, he hasn't occupied the podium too much in his Formula 1 career. Obviously, he has got a couple of podiums here and there. I think he narrowly missed out on a first win at some point last season. I can't remember the exact circumstances of it, but I remember he was leading and then had a mechanical failure, which was pretty devastating for him. But yeah, on this occasion, I'm sure we'll be happy to pick up P2, and hopefully that first win will come sooner rather than later for him.
It's a good result for Lando Norris, who moves further ahead at the top of the table. Let's see what effect this result has had on the drivers' standings. So let's discuss, Ant. Who would you say is a contender for your driver of the day?
I think for driver of the day, I'd probably pick Lando Norris. He lived up to every inch of his reputation today, and I think he'll be going home, quite rightly, a bit proud of himself.
It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes continue to extend their lead. Meanwhile, a strong weekend from Red Bull this time out, and they improved their position in the championship. Been an absolutely wild weekend of Formula One action. I can't wait to see what's next.
So in the end, Austria, no safety cars this time, which, you know, you would have to say is a little bit of an anomaly, because in years gone by, across the sprint and the race, I've had as many as 5 safety cars here sometimes. So to have absolutely none on a weekend is a bit of a shock, I must admit. But I guess there just wasn't quite as much chaos here as there usually is. I don't know if maybe they've done tweaks to the AI around this circuit or what, but certainly the race was nowhere near as dramatic as I was expecting it would be. But still, we've come away with a fairly good result, all things considered, given how the sprint went. I think the race, we managed to make it work a little bit better. But Lando Norris has outscored us by 21 points there, and extended his lead out in front to 31 now. So we're gonna have to try and work very hard over the next few races to try and close that gap again. You know, it's a fairly decent run of tracks, although I must admit, whilst I have been saying obviously Britain is a favourite track for me, I find that it's not gone particularly well on this year's game compared to last year's game so far. Every year it feels like it's a bit of a struggle to even stay in the points around Silverstone. So I want to hype this one up as a sort of, you know, battle for the win at your home race type scenario between myself and Norris and Russell, who are currently occupying the top 3 spots in the championship. It'll be interesting to see how that one goes, but yeah, I hyped it up like that last season, if I remember correctly. Obviously, it was about 3 months ago we did that race now. So yeah, I don't overly remember, but I seem to remember hyping it up as a little bit of a battle between myself and Norris to win our home race and take control of the championship. And in the end, he absolutely walked it, and I think I finished about 8th. So yeah, I don't want to hype it up in that way again, just to be sort of let down by my performance there. So we've got to be realistic. I definitely think there are circuits on the calendar where I can get some good performance in. France is one where I've got podiums out on this year's game before. Hungary as well always has the potential to throw up a bit of chaos, especially given how difficult it is to overtake around there. But there are also a number of tracks in the not too distant future which don't tend to go amazingly well for me. Like Zandvoort, for example, is not a favourite track of mine in this year's game, or Monza as well is a bit of a tricky one too. No Singapore on this year's game as well, which is a track that actually I've looked like I might win on occasion in the past, if it weren't for, I remember I had a mechanical failure there when I was on for a victory. So yeah, no Singapore to kind of bail me out this year. We're gonna have to try and maximise what we can from the next 6 or so races, and then we can look forward to Japan, which is traditionally a bit of a stronghold for me. I've won it 3 or 4 times now, and I'm imagining that, I say 3 or 4, it must be, I think it's 3. I think we've won it every season since season 2. So yeah, it's looking like we'll probably end up winning that one this season. But you know, anything can happen in Formula 1, and quite often it does, as they say. But yeah, next up, like I said, is Silverstone. But that is going to be it for this video. So if you enjoyed, please make sure you like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.